So I want to talk a little bit about Sodexo stewarding the commons. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Sodexo because many of you may not know the name. When I came to the company almost a little over a year ago, I didn't know what they did. So we're large quality of life service provider, 427,000 employees globally. So if you think about how important people are to us, stewarding populations, stewarding our employment, stewarding economies is very, very important to us. You'll know us mostly for on-site services. In this region, probably food service. Universities, hospitals, schools, you name it. So that's who we are. Why do we do this? We focus on quality of life because of the people, right? By improving the quality of life of those we serve, we can help your organizations perform better because you're taking care of your people. So we think about corporate responsibility in relation to the impacts we have and the roles that we have. So if you think about impact is something we all have. Everyone makes a difference. It's up to you, it's up to us, it's up to our companies what kind of difference that's going to be. So at Sodexo, we think about our impact on individuals, on communities, and on the environment. And then intersect this with our role. We are an employer, we are a service provider, and we are a corporate citizen. And so when you think about this in relation to sourcing, a lot of where I live in my day-to-day life and what I do for Sodexo, it's going to be in these areas. In this intersection of being a service provider and our impact on communities and our impact on the environment. Everything that we're purchasing, or almost everything that we're purchasing, is for our clients. So as a service provider, it's important that we're taking into account not only what we believe in here, but also what our clients believe in and aligning with that. I would also argue that as someone who supports the entire organization in procurement, that we enable all of these intersections. But today I'm going to focus on these two. So I'm going to quickly go through, because Sam asked me to highlight what we're doing in seafood. Now, for those of you who came to my panel yesterday morning, I brought in a number of our stakeholders to do a panel to talk about how we approached sustainable seafood in our sourcing guide. And it's a global guide, so as you can imagine, it was very difficult to come to one guide and for a supply that is global and has opacity in the supply chain in places where we have to do continuous improvement. But we can't do it alone. And so I think it's really important when you think about stewardship that you can't just be doing it alone. You can't just be looking at what you do. You have to involve your partners. And so we have a lot of partners. These are just a few of them. So I brought with me our wonderful partner, WWF, who helped us create this sourcing guide, and one of our suppliers, Slade Gorton, who helped us implement it here in the US, and then one of our customers, the National Aquarium, who lived with the result of our sourcing guide and how that fulfilled their mission as well. So it's important that you include these partners, and the more you include them, the more your stewardship grows outward beyond what you do into the rest of the supply chain. And sometimes some of those partners are going to, tell you some things you don't want to hear, right? Greenpeace releases this report every year on food service, and yes, we're #1 in the industry, but we're still yellow, right? It's only a 62 score out of 100. So there's always going to be continuous improvement as you're looking at stewardship. This world is changing. This world is changing faster and faster and faster. And so we have to keep up with that, and we have to always be looking at what's next. So main focus here, I want to focus on that people. I talked about people and how important people were. So let's talk about how you steward people in your supply chain. So this is just one example of some local sourcing work we did. This is kind of a diagram of the different players involved in this example, or some of the different players. So if you look at this as like a tale of two clients, we've got the Chicago Botanic Garden, who was our client in Chicago, and Northwestern Dining, which is also our client in Chicago. Northwestern Dining had this incredible push for sustainability. They have an amazing strategy, and they really wanted more and more local in their supply chain. Now, when we come to our produce category, we partner with distributors that go that operate regionally, because it's not efficient on our side or on the farmer side for us to be dealing with individual farmers. There's a lot of things that you have to do with the supply for produce and food to make sure that it's safe when you're putting it into a food service environment. So we depend on making partnerships with our produce suppliers to really help us manage that supply chain. And we work to find produce providers that can align with our goals. So if you think back to our Better Tomorrow matrix, that focus on local is built into our contracts. And that's something that we want our local produce providers to help us implement. So in this case, Midwest Foods was our partner in the Chicago area and is our partner in the Chicago area and is just amazing. Totally aligned with what we want to do with Better Tomorrow, completely embedded in the community, and so a very, very important partner to us. So here's Northwestern, they want more local. And here's Chicago Botanic Garden, who has this incredibly amazing program that trains local communities around what farming is all about, what agriculture is all about in Chicago, right? So we're talking urban farming. They're looking to enhance what's going on in the community and serving populations that maybe weren't looked at before, right? So they're doing training programs with people in prison, youth at risk, veterans. They're doing programs with folks that may not have ever even thought about farming, right? And coming up and getting these training programs together to advance their individual careers or create an opportunity that they didn't have anywhere else. And then also training them, incubating them, creating farms, more urban farms in the area. So when we were working with our chef in the Chicago Botanic Garden, said, hey, we're using some of this produce in our own cafeteria. Why don't we get it into our supply chain? And so here's Northwestern, across the street, basically, who says, I want more local. And our wonderful produce provider who says, let's match this up. So we got Windy City Harvest, the program that Chicago Botanic Garden was running for job training and advancing agriculture in the Chicago community, and got them ready and ramped up into our supply chain. And guess what happened? That volume that we provided, that expertise that our partner provided to get them into food service and to educate their program and the farms they were incubating into how to serve a food service supply chain, is that volume allowed that program to grow. So now we have come up with this interconnected group where we've got a supplier / client who is also into the supply chain. And now the way that we've embedded this, and because we're utilizing the providers in the area and utilizing our supply chain, it's sustainable, because no matter who's the food service provider, that supply chain has been created. And so their program is going to be ongoing, regardless of what happens with kind of some of the other players in the space. So let's talk about what this means for impact. What do you think this percentage is? We like percentages, right? We like percentages of sustainable spend, percentages of local spend. Here's a percentage of local spend. Not very impressive, right? That seems like a small percentage. And when you're buying a lot of food, how do you move that percentage? And where do you concentrate? And how do you make sure that you're making the right decisions to take the right opportunities? Well, this is where I think we need to focus. We need to focus on where to put those percentages. This is a better metric, same metric, but 34% year-over-year increase with Windy City Harvest on the demand that was coming from Sodexo. So what this meant is they could increase their supply 34%. What do you think that means? That means more urban farms. That means more people trained. So if you think about the programs that they have Job Corps, they have apprenticeship. The apprenticeship program, 14 weeks paid internship to get people who may not have any idea where they're going with their life or what's next, a new path. Right? And then they come out into either for more education or employment. So employment is part of this program. So since we started working with Windy City Harvest, they've been able to expand, and they've trained 100 farmers. They've incubated 30 new businesses, and they've been able to invest in more urban farms and more programs to educate the community on fresh and healthy eating, to provide new incubator spaces, to create, I can't wait to go see it, a new aquaponics facility to investigate that kind of work, right? Now, let's talk about some of the better impacts. These are the stories where, I might pull a Sam. These are some of the people that were involved, right? We're stewarding this population, right? We are helping bring this population to new opportunities. And those opportunities are lost for us as well if we're not helping advance those. So when you think about Darius in the green shirt, Darius at 17 was arrested and convicted of vehicular hijacking. He said it's by the grace of God that that's what he was caught for. So he had a short sentence of a few years in jail, Cooks County Prison, where they put him into an apprenticeship program within the prison where he learned how to garden. And when he came out and heard about Windy City Harvest, he went right into their apprenticeship program. And then from there, he did such great work that he went into their farm incubator program. And now he is the CEO of his own business. And you think about getting the right partner, right? So Midwest Foods is all in as well. So when they were trying to bring in Windy City Harvest, they invested in the first new farm. So philanthropically, they put money in to help the Chicago Botanic Gardens program start to grow so that they had the volume so that they could keep growing. And not only that, so on the lower side here, you see the guy in the white jacket? Okay, 15 years old, he was in prison for drug-related charges, and he is now a supervisor at Midwest Foods, covering food quality. So these are people who've gotten a new lease on life, and these are organizations that continue to do this and can grow with our spend dollars. So I would encourage every single one of you to look for opportunities in your supply chain. This was an accident. We wanted to do local sourcing, and we ended up doing impact sourcing. So my job when I came in here is to say, this is great, let's document this, but let's find out where else we can do this. So let's look for those opportunities. Let's be intentional here. And so that, for me, is something that I think we should all do. I'd like to call your attention to a group, Global Impact Sourcing Coalition. You've heard about Global Impact Sourcing through BSR and Rockefeller Foundation. There's now a formal challenge that we can all get involved in, whether it's hiring, inclusive hiring at our suppliers or inclusive hiring of our own so that we can say we are a supplier who does this. This is an important coalition I think that you should all check out and figure out how you can support. It's certainly something that I'm going to be pitching internally for work in our supply chain and also documenting what we do in our inclusive hiring practices. So this is my call to action for all of you, is let's find opportunities in your supply chain somewhere to do impact sourcing, and let's try to steward the people in our supply chains and in our organizations. Thank you.